Hi and welcome to Production Music Live. My name is Francois and in today's video we are going to hand it over to our guest tutor Effe from Sweden, who will take the PML project file called Amelie in the style of Amelie Lens and turn it into something that sounds more like Charlotte De Witte. So without further ado, let's get started.
So we are taking this and turning into this. Hey guys, welcome to Production Music Live. My name is Effe. Some of you may know me by my artist name Biscuit, and I will be your guide for today's video. I want to start video by thanking Production Music Live for this kind invitation to make a theme tutorial where I take Production Music Live's Amelie Lens template and make a Charlotte De Witte template instead. If you don't know me, I make a lot of artist remakes and label influence tutorials in my channel. If you want to take a look, check my channel on the description below. So let's take a look at the track and go through a little bit different elements on the track. And I think the first thing one of the most important thing in this track is actually kick and rumble. I have this group over here which I actually process the kick and rumble together. I actually like the kick sound on the original template. The body was really nice, but what I want to do actually is beef up a little bit on the low end so that we have a bit more gritty, a bit more aggressive low end, and I want to also push a little bit on the high end so we can hear this distortion on the sound. So I have here one low kick and one mid kick. Mid kick basically the original kick that we had on the template, and then I have raw rumble and mid rumble. So the low kick sounds like this. So this is the addition that I made to the track. I just took a 808 sample. Let me turn the effects. Like nothing really so different. And then I put a saturator and an EQ8. So I really am interested in the low end of this sound, not on the high end. And then finally the drum bass. And this was the kick that was present in the original template, so I really like the sound of this. Take a look. What I did basically just cut off all the low end because we already have 808 sample over there, so we want to glue them nicely together. On the other hand, I took this kind of nice mid area and slightly on high area as well. The most of the things are just the effects from the original sample. And the important thing here is actually I made two different rumbles as well. So the low rumble and mid rumble. And low rumble is something like this. And mid kick and rumble is something like this. So we have two different layers that actually we can control over so that you can actually make the kick and rumble exactly the way you want to have. And all together they sound like this. Extremely strong kick and rumble sound, but however I would like to add a little bit distortion sound on top of the kick, and I had this one. This one actually comes from the template as well. I just cut it off a little bit and just get this super gritty high part. And then I had this bass swing that I made myself. I just took a effect sample and then put a reverb and then an amplifier, make this really gritty. And then finally a compressor. And then another compressor, also this one is actually sidechain to mid rumble, so I am trying to make this sound as consistent as possible with my rumble. And then just another EQ8 here. And all together they sound like this. Let me just turn this off. Really big sound. And then final thing that I had here is actually bass transit, but it's kind of almost percussive sound, just giving this kind of, I would say, movement to the low end. And actually it just sounds like this. And of course it's compressed and sidechained to the mid kick so that we are ducking when the kick hits. And all together we end up with this super big low end. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to process them together, to glue them together basically. But I did here, I actually used the original FX chain here as well. I think add the overdrive in the beginning. So drive a bit more in this like grid area. And some EQing. This one just give this glue effect to the sound. And another EQ. This one basically makes sure that if you can see here, it's like mid-side EQ. So we are taking all this side information up to 200 Hz because we don't want like a stereo low end in our sound. And then a slight EQ. Make it the way we want it. And a final bunch. This one is much like a slight compression again. And this one is just gain control. So we end up with this super tight big low end. And the second most important thing in this track is actually the lead sound, the acid lead, in like you can hear it on the break part, and then there is like a big huge lead on the lead part. I just call it Charlotte lead. The acid lead is actually pretty simple. You can get this sound with just by using analog device in Ableton Live, and it sounds like this. Let me find somewhere here. I'm basically playing with the frequency or cutoff here so that I'm opening it up and the sound gets a bit more aggressive. And basically using analog one oscillator, adding a noise, and then I have like filter cutoff over here. And this part, the resonance is very important, that you are like cranking up a little bit so that you get this really acid sound. And you can even make it a bit more drastic here by playing envelope amount here and here, so it gets a bit more and more resonant. If I take off the effects, actually you can hear the original sound, so it may explain a little bit better. The most of the magic comes from the effects that we are using here. But I do basically just using this to cut off super lows here because we don't want that. And then using a glue compressor, making a bit more tighter, a bit less dynamic. And here where the magic happens, I will say, we have a delay rack. So basically we have two chains. The first chain is the dry chain, so just the sound itself, nothing else. And the second part is the wet chain. On the wet chain, we have different type of things that is going on. The first one is, of course, the delay itself, or in this case, I'm using the Ableton's echo device. Like we are taking this mid area so that we get this kind of a bit 30 sound. And the secondly, we are using pedal, giving this kind of distortion and grit to the sound itself. And probably the important thing over here is the compressor actually sidechain to sound itself. So when we hit the dry sound, we are ducking the wet signal, so that if I drive or exaggerate a little bit, so it really helps to hear the origin sound so that it doesn't get super much with all this delay. And finally we have one final reverb over here, just gluing everything together and giving this kind of nice ambience. Yeah, that was the sound for the acid lead. And then we have this super interesting sound. I'm calling it the Charlotte lead. I think she has this sound in a couple of different tracks, so it is really nice actually. And actually sounds like this. It's like a super big lead sound. You would find this type of sound also even other type of darker main room techno tracks like Umek or Hidden Empire. Maybe they have this kind of really big sound. So what I did, basically, I used Serum. I basically have two different Serum layered on top of each other. The upper version is actually like the high end, and the lower version is the body of the sound. And if you take a look at this one on the low end, So I have these two oscillators and a sub and of course a noise too. So I'm using a lot of things because I really want to bring it up all these harmonics. The important thing over here is actually leaving the filter or the mix of the filter a bit down. So we are around like 95% or something. So we are letting a slight high end pass through the filter even though we are putting a movement on the filter here. So this gives a lot of nice harmonics to the sound. And then we are of course also playing a bit like the here in this knob so that there's a movement or there's a movement on the oscillator so the sound slightly changes. And here we are playing with the mirror again. On the effect side we have this distortion to give it a bit warmth to the sound. Phase just makes the sound a bit more unstable, I will say, and a chorus. And finally another filter. This one also have kind of, let me see, I think here you can see definitely slight movement there as well. And then I will say the effects are also kind of important. Probably the first one is one of the most important one, which is OTT. It is basically a rack that I built myself, so I basically used 4 different OTT, put them on top of each other, so each knob here actually process a part of the sound that I would like to process. For example, this one is like controlling the sub, and this one is the low, and this one is the high, and this one is the super high. So you can basically exaggerate the part of the sound that you would like to have. So in this case, I'm exaggerating the high mid amount so that the sound gets a bit thirdier. And then we have delay rack. We are doing exactly the same thing that we did before. So this is the dry one, this is the wet one, and then we have another reverb here. Really huge one, but again, we are using a compressor sidechain to the dry sound, so when we put the dry sound, we would like to really have the body of the sound, the dirty sound, but then we would like to have this big ambient right afterwards. If I solo the reverb sound, that's the reason that we also hear this big sound and then a big reverb right afterwards. And then finally we have a utility just to control or make a gain staging. Yeah, and these are the lead sounds that I use for the track. Which brings us to the next chapter, which is the breakdown. I think the third most important part for this track is the Charlotte De Witte breakdowns. Like it's really long, building up this tension in the break so that you get this really dark chorus right afterwards. And there are a couple of things that you can utilize for that part. What I did actually basically utilizing this art and using it like on the background tension builder. I think she has a very similar thing in one of her tracks, and actually it sounds like this. Basically, I'm playing an arp, like one first note, the fifth and the sixth, so giving this nice feeling. But let me turn off all the effects so that you can actually hear the original sound. So we are using basically Serum for this one, really simple one, the sawtooth wave and a slight cutoff. The trick is using a slight delay so that the sound gets a bit unstable. And then we are using EQ8, cutting the super lows, and echo. And this part is extremely important. So what is happening at this moment? We are playing with the feedback. So to start with, we are like a regular feedback for the 49%, and then we are opening up or increasing the feedback, and then it starts to feedback itself. So it's the sound gets louder and louder basically, because you give a sound and then you feed back again itself. So it's delaying again and it's feeding even more and feeding even more. It's like a runaway effect. And right before the next hit, we are ducking it again or decreasing the feedback again so that it doesn't get out of the control. But we are gradually also opening up the cutoff over here. So the sound gets more and more and more aggressive. So it builds this tension during the breakdown. To make it more ambient, we are having a very wet reverb, like 56%. And then auto filter So we are opening this one also in the meantime here and closing a bit down, opening up back again. So giving this movement to the sound. And a glue compressor. This is basically controls the sound. So you see, if sound gets louder, it is ducking more, so that we try to keep the balance, the dynamic of the sound. And then finally, utility, basically for gain staging, more or less. And then, of course, we have this very interesting white splash sound. I really enjoy making this one. It's really, really nice. And it sounds like this. So what we have done for this actually just simple trick. We are using Serum, just a white noise, right? Nothing else. And then we have this LFO. The trick is here is actually playing with the LFO rate over here, and we are increasing the rate more and more and more. To get this more richer white noise though, I have this noise over here, and then I had a lot of effects on top of that. Just to make it a bit richer, and then EQ here. But I think the trick is basically using vocoder. This is the original sound. Actually, you can utilize the vocoder to exaggerate and add up a little bit harmonics to the sound. It basically adds like the noise harmonics to any sound that you have. It is like adding these harmonics basically, and gives this sound a bit more organic feeling. And another EQ8, and then final utility. And the final thing I will say here is actually these vocals that I took from the template. It just gives this super nice glue and feeling to the track. Take a look. Without the vocals. With the vocals. It's just 10 times better. It just glues the mix up altogether. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go through all different elements. Going through each one of these will take at least an hour. But if we just play this track, and I can briefly show you each element so that you can understand what's going on. So let's play. So I think that was it for today's video. So if you like the template and if you want me to make a full track out of this as a template so that you can take a look afterwards, there will be a link on the description below. So there will be a poll. So just go to the poll and just vote for the yes. And if we see that there is enough people voting for the yes, then we are going to make a full Charlotte De Witte template out of this one. And again, really big thanks to Production Music Live for inviting me here. I really enjoyed making this video. This was a lot of fun. And if you want to see more of my videos, go to my channels, or if you want more of my videos in PML, drop a comment. And hope you the best, and until next time, goodbye.